Well, hello once again, fellow Star Trek fans. I hope you're doing well. I got another little Star Trek goodie to show you. This one from Diamond Select. And it's from the original series of Star Trek. And this is from very, very, very early in the series. This is actually from the pilot episode. This is Diamond Select. This is from the 40th anniversary of Star Trek, which was 2007. And this one is the U.S.S. Enterprise, NCC-1701, as seen in the pilot, The Cage. Now there are differences to the ship. Now when it comes to the 2007 Diamond Select 40th anniversary series, let me show you. I got a couple that I've already shown you. Let's put this one aside for a minute. Now I've showed you most recently Where No Man Has Gone Before, the Enterprise. You can see the markings are different, and what I can do is I'll put a link in a description so you can check out this one of the 40th anniversary. As far as I understand, let me see. They had the regular 40th anniversary U.S.S. Enterprise from seasons 2 on. They had the Cage version, the pilot version. They had Where No Man Has Gone Before version. And they had one of the more difficult to find versions. Let me get it for you. Was the Gold Edition. And I'll put links for you guys to check these out in the descriptions on the bottom. The gold one is one of my favorites. I was so ecstatic to get this. I absolutely love it. But this episode, let me put this aside. This episode is for The Cage. And I don't know if fellow Star Trek fans probably already know this, but those of you that may not know it, The Cage was actually written when Gene Roddenberry approached NBC and pitched the idea of Star Trek to the network. They ordered a pilot. So Gene Roddenberry wrote The Cage. Now it was very different. The ship was different. Even from Where No Man Has Gone Before, the ship had changed. There are different markings on the bridge in the pilot. Remember, the model had just been created of the U.S.S. Enterprise. It was captained by Captain Christopher Pike, which was Jeffrey Hunter. The doctor was different. Let's see. Mr. Spock was not second in command. Marjo Barrett, who would later play Nurse Chapel, actually played number 1. An interesting little fact. When a captain orders a course correction or a difference in speed, Captain Picard always would say engage. And Commander Riker was always considered number 1. Well, when he would say engage, everybody associates Captain Picard with that. But it was actually Jeffrey Hunter's character, Captain Christopher Pike, that started that. Every time there would be a course correction, or they would leave orbit, or they would do something with the ship changing speed, or thusly related, he would say engage. And he considered Marjo Barrett as his number 1. And it's weird to see Mr. Spock, because his character was still being, well, I guess, developed. You can see him when they beam down to the surface of the planet and he's looking at a plant species and he's smiling. And he just seems to have a lot of emotion. Later on, when he hones his character, that gets controlled. And the network actually ended up rejecting The Cage because they didn't like it. So, not to be outdone, he wrote another episode, and he wrote Where No Man Has Gone Before. And of course, it was captained by Captain James T. Kirk, William Shatner. There was the addition of the new Doctor, and that was the Doctor who had played the same Doctor in The Rifleman. And again, I go through all that in the other episode for the Where No Man Has Gone Before Enterprise. But this one is The Cage, and this one was rejected. Now, they did bring this episode back later on in season 1. They incorporated Captain Kirk, and what they did was they had Mr. Spock, who felt not a betrayal to Starfleet as so much as a loyalty to Captain Pike. Captain Pike was in an accident, and he was immobilized in a wheelchair. And Mr. Spock remembered that the Talosians could make him pretty much happy the way he was. The Talos 4 planet was the only planet and the only area in Starfleet to carry a death penalty if there was contact. But Mr. Spock risked it, stole the Enterprise, and brought Captain Pike to Talos 4. And ultimately, he ends up staying, and he's back with Vina. So they incorporate that into another episode. But this was the original pilot. This has only Captain Christopher Pike in command of the Enterprise. What happens is they open up, they introduce the ship, they show that there's an incoming transmission, and it turns out to be a distress signal. Let me see if I remember. The U.S.S. Columbia had sent out a distress signal, and they were lured ultimately to the planet Talos 4. They beam down a search party, and they're shown survivors at a camp. And they're all older gentlemen, and there's one young blonde female. Her name is Vina. And ultimately, it was a trap to kidnap Captain Pike. And what is happening is the Talosians are trying to find a species that are hardy enough to regenerate the top of the planet. Their planet had been decimated by war. So they're looking for a new Adam and Eve to build a race of basically slaves to serve them and, make the planet habitable. So he's given a choice between Vina, and when he resists, there's all kinds of different scenarios where they try to make her attractive to Captain Pike. Ultimately, they bring down number 1 and the yeoman. It's before Yeoman Rand. I can't remember her name. But he's offered a selection. Ultimately, what ends up happening is the illusion that they give were that the phasers were not working. So when a Talosian tries to open up a door to the cell and take the phasers, Captain Pike pulls him in and tests out his theory that the phasers are drained. And he's ultimately shown that they're not. He gets to the surface planet, the planet's surface, and when they're told they're going to be a race of slaves, he ultimately does not like the idea, and number 1 takes her phaser and puts it on overload. They would rather be destroyed than serve as a race of slaves. So the other Talosians come up after reading the Enterprise's computers and realize the unique hatred of captivity that humans possess, and they're ultimately not used. But Vina is shown her true appearance because she decides to stay. And she needs to stay because she's deformed, because they had never seen a human when they found her at the crash site. So ultimately, Christopher Pike and the Enterprise leave, and after reporting everything that happened, Starfleet deems that the only death penalty will be with anyone coming in contact of Talos 4. And in the menagerie, that's a whole different story, but they incorporate this episode into the new Star Trek. Well, into later season 1. But anyway, this is the U.S.S. Enterprise from the pilot episode, or the first pilot episode. Because a lot of you may be wondering, going, well, wait a minute, how can they have two pilots? So one pilot is always referred to as the cage. Later on, the same episode would be incorporated into a two-part episode, the Menagerie, Part 1 and Part 2. Now, the Menagerie and the Cage are two totally separate episodes. And then you have Where No Man Has Gone Before. That's considered the pilot. Well, they actually have two pilots. Where No Man Has Gone Before was the pilot that was actually the one that persuaded NBC to pick up the series Star Trek after rejecting The Cage. And they had gotten William Shatner to play the captain as Captain Kirk. So, some of the differences from this ship, and actually that'll make a pretty good video. What I'll do is, sometime in the future, I'll compare all of the 40th anniversary Enterprises side by side and all the sound effects. But you can see in this version of the Enterprise, it's got a different marking, even from Where No Man Has Gone Before. The bridge is still high. That would be lowered later on, and those markings would be changed. And it's the same thing with the Bussard collectors. You can't really see them in the box, but they don't light up. They have the antennas that are on them. U.S.S. Enterprise, NCC-1701, authentic Star Trek sound effects. Again, light up engines, bridge, and sensory array. The engines do not light up. The Bussard collectors, nothing lights up in a secondary hull or the nacelles. You can see the front of the box. I've gone over pretty much. The top, you got a nice picture of the Enterprise, and this is after the pilots, where they change the ship and the Bussard collectors light up. Oh, sorry about that. This is the 40th anniversary. The sides, as with the previous two, they have that kind of Star Trek the Motion Picture image going on. The other side has that iconic, wonderful Star Trek Enterprise shot. I love that view. And it shows you the different Enterprise shots. Diamond Select, ART Asylum. And looking at the back, different products available. The Captain Kirk's, the phaser, and you can see information on the ship's layout, and the warp drive, red alert, photon attack, phaser attack, and a transporter. Now I'm thinking that all of these ships have the same sound effects. Now later on I'll do a comparison of all these ships and a side-by-side comparison, but it'd be nice if they would have been different for each episode, but that's not what had happened. And you got pictures of the ship, the crew, different episodes, Blaylock on the bottom. In 1966, Gene Roddenberry approached NBC with a show he described as a wagon train to the stars. What he accomplished was beyond even his dreams, a phenomenon spanning 40 years, 5 long-running series, and 10 feature films. The fictional voyages of the U.S.S. Enterprise may have spanned this galaxy, but Roddenberry's idea moved the entire world. 40 years after its debut, the Starship Enterprise has become synonymous with Star Trek. Launched in 2246, the Constitution-class U.S.S. Enterprise NCC-1701 is perhaps the most famous ship in Federation history. Under the command of Captain Robert April, Captain Christopher Pike, and most notably, Captain James T. Kirk, the Enterprise was responsible for making first contact with a variety of intelligent species, making scientific discoveries, and even defending the entire galaxy against hostile forces. Whether traveling through time or engaging Klingon battle cruisers, the crew of the U.S.S. Enterprise exceeded expectations and 40 years later continues to boldly go where no man has gone before. And they have that little bit of information on all of the boxes so far. So that's a look at the outside of the box. I've given you information on the episode history. So let's go ahead and take her out of the box. All right, so I took her out of the box. That's a nice shot of her. And like I did with the other ones, it's all sealed and in place. You got the shark fin stand, and you got the base, which is the Delta logo, which is very nice. And you have the bottom part of the ship that does not have the hole for the stand. This one does. It's got the little pin that goes inside. I like that a lot better than the ball and socket one. But I'm not going to open this up. I'm not going to tear it open. I'm going to leave it intact. So we'll put that aside. And it does come with paperwork. Now let me just pause and take the paperwork out of the plastic. All right, let me show you guys. There's a little pamphlet. Let's see, Star Trek The Next Generation. You guys can pause if there's something you want to check out. It shows you the action figures. The action figures are cool. I've never really been into the action figures though. I've mostly been into the ships. And it shows you the ship, the Enterprise E. You got Mr. Worf. You got a big variety from Star Trek The Next Generation. And when you flip it over, you've got the figures from the original series. You can see from Mirror Mirror. You can see the different captains' chairs with those kind of microphone things sticking out. Now, even in the cage, this episode, you can see the Enterprise. Even the transporters were different, and there was no Mr. Scott as the engineer. So you can see that they had those same kind of antenna, microphone-looking kind of things that were on the transporter room console. It gives you a good shot of the markings. So that was really different. I'll show you the phaser, some information about the products available from the original show, and you got the cover. You have Captain Sisko from Deep Space Nine, Captain Picard from the Enterprise NCC-1701D, and Captain Kirk from the original. And that's basically everything that comes with. And it's got another sheet, 40th anniversary of Star Trek. It shows you battery placement, classic Enterprise from Pilot 1 version, the cage from the first pilot. And it shows you the try me mode to the play, battery placement, and it shows you the different sounds that it makes, the activation, and finally the stand. And there's nothing on the back. So let's put all this aside and take a look at the ship herself. You can see the differences. The markings has changed. Those black stripes on either side of the saucer section, they're clear now as opposed to solid black bars that they'll do for the second pilot. The deflector dish is still large. You can see the deflector dish actually gets smaller, and later on there are no markings on the bridge, the A and B decks in the front, and it's significantly reduced in height. The Bissard collectors light up and spin. And beside collectors on this version, they've got the antennas and the caps. Now for this model kit, Polar Lights does sell the separate option of the like an alternate version of the kit add-ons where you can do the same. You can do the pilot version. The backs of the nacelles. In the cage, where No Man Has Gone Before, they had the holes of the grill, and in this version they've got like the stripes going down the middle. And again, you can make either pilot version in a conversion kit sold by Polar Lights for the 1/350 scale. So let me show you guys her other side. Different markings. I mean, they didn't do a lot of changes because when the model was made, I think it was 64. They did a couple of alterations, but for the most part, she stayed the same. So let's go ahead now and we can hear what she sounds like. Push the top of the... warp drive sounds. That's cool. That was a different one. The captain informing the crew that they're going to the Talos 4 star system. Captain Christopher Pike. And the warp drive. Now, as with all of these from Diamond Select, you hold it down for a few seconds. And that engages all the lights. That's a nice shot of her. Interestingly, when it shows the crew going through space in this episode, instead of showing the ship, they show flashes in the opening title, and the opening title is pretty different. But they don't show the ship. They actually show the people on the bridge, and they fade in and out, and they fade superimposed pictures of space in and out to show that they're traveling. They don't show the exterior shots of the ship at all. And me personally, for my preferences is, my favorite character in Star Trek is the Enterprise. So I love it when they show the outside of the ship. Especially the opening scene. They show the Enterprise traveling through space. The camera comes in. It goes up to the bridge area, and it zooms into the bridge, and we're shown the crew on the bridge of the Enterprise. You can see the underneath, where the battery compartment is. I'll show you the markings under the saucer section. It's got these three markings. I don't know what that is. I don't remember seeing those on the other two. Let's turn her around. And the cell pylons are pretty much the same. The nacelles are pretty much the same, with the exception of the ends They ended up going with the little balls at the end. But the coolant pieces are pretty much the same. The rings around where the Bassard collectors go are pretty much the same. The observation deck is pretty much the same. And the markings on the saucer section aft of the bridge, or A and B decks, are pretty much the same. It's just that there's no markings on the front. So that, my friends, is the cage version of the Starship U.S.S. Enterprise 16-inch electronic Starship from the first pilot episode of The Cage. And that was released in 2007 from Diamond Select, 40th anniversary edition. So the one I don't have, let's see, they have just a regular version of the Enterprise, and that's the most common. Then they have the Cage version. It was a little harder to find that. I have Where No Man Has Gone Before. I've shown you that version. It's a little bit rare. And then there's the gold version, and I haven't been able to find that at all. I was lucky that I got that version. And I'll put up links in the description so you can check out all three. Like I said, I'm going to make a video where I compare them all side by side, sounds and lights and differences. But I'll do that when I actually get the remaining one, the 2007 version, the normal version of the ship. And that one's not too hard to get. But that was really, really fun to show you guys the differences and talk about the pilots and the changes, the subtle changes between this, the pilot, first pilot version of our beloved U.S.S. Enterprise, to a more recent late Season 1, Season 2, and Season 3. Now, when they do the episode Mirror, Mirror, the Enterprise, the ISS Enterprise, actually has the antennas on the Bassard collectors and the older version of the ship. So that one is pretty cool. And you can actually get the aftermarket kit to make the 1/350 scale into the ISS Enterprise. And that one is just amazing. She's beautiful. That's the later version. And of course it is her that eventually becomes the Enterprise refit, the Star Trek the motion picture. And that goes into a whole different video. So, my friends, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoy the videos, or let me put it this way, I hope you have as much fun watching as I do making them. Because I just think it's a blast. Especially the Star Trek stuff. I just love this stuff. It's so cool. And I hope you have as much fun watching as I do making it. So my friends, until the next video, whether it's Star Trek related or a collectible or anything like that, I look forward to talking to you again really soon. Until then, live long and prosper.